Introduction to Asperger syndrome.
I was always out of tune, or so I thought. I now realize I'm simply at a different frequency.
Asperger's is pretty cool. When I like something, I like it a whole lot more than my friends like their things.
Normal is a drier setting.
Asperger's syndrome has probably been an important and valuable characteristic of our species throughout evolution.
Asperger syndrome, like autism, is a spectrum, and no two Aspies, as they are often called, are alike. As Asperger's is a high-functioning form of autism, it is not always easily recognizable. Many children may not receive diagnosis early on, and many are initially misdiagnosed with other disorders, such as obsessive-compulsive disorder, attention deficit disorder, or as oppositionally defiant. Asperger shares many characteristics with autism, but there are notable differences between the two. Those with Asperger syndrome tend to be higher functioning, usually exhibiting normal intelligence and typical language development. Asperger syndrome is often referred to as high-functioning autism, but has its own set of diagnostic criteria that differs from autism just a bit. Although it has been removed from the most recent version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, we will still discuss it as there are many people currently diagnosed with Asperger's, and those who work with individuals on the autism spectrum will still encounter individuals with this diagnosis. We will also touch briefly on the newest related diagnosis, social communication disorder, in a subsequent module. So what exactly is Asperger syndrome? Asperger syndrome is defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 4, DSM-4-TR, as a pervasive developmental disorder that is characterized by impairment in social interaction, by stereotyped and restricted patterns of behavior, activities, and interests, and by no clinically significant delay in cognitive development or general delay in language. Parents usually sense there is something unusual about their child by his or her third birthday. And some children may exhibit symptoms as early as infancy. Unlike children with autism, children with Asperger syndrome is often referred to as high-functioning autism, but has its own set of diagnostic criteria that differs from autism just a bit. Although it has been removed from the most recent version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, we will still discuss it as there are many people currently diagnosed with Asperger's, and those who work with individuals on the autism spectrum will still encounter individuals with this diagnosis. We will also touch briefly on the newest related diagnosis, social communication disorder, in a subsequent module. So what exactly is Asperger syndrome? Asperger syndrome is defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 4, DSM-4-TR, as a pervasive developmental disorder that is characterized by impairment in social interaction, by stereotyped and restricted patterns of behavior, activities, and interests, and by no clinically significant delay in cognitive development or general delay in language. Parents usually sense there is something unusual about their child by his or her third birthday, and some children may exhibit symptoms as early as infancy. Unlike children with autism, children with Asperger's develop fairly normal early language skills. The first indicators may come in the form of motor development delays, such as crawling or walking late, and clumsiness.
New?
The incidence of Asperger's is not well established, but experts in population studies place the number somewhere between 1 in every 3,000 and 1 in every 5,000. Boys are 3 to 4 times more likely than girls to have Asperger's. Studies of children with Asperger's show that their problems with socialization and communication continue into adulthood. Some of these children develop additional psychiatric symptoms and disorders in adolescence and adulthood. Although diagnosed mainly in children, Asperger's is being increasingly diagnosed in adults who seek medical help for mental health conditions, such as depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. No studies have yet been conducted to determine its incidence in adult populations.
The first indicator of Asperger's may come in the form of blank delays. Motor delays. Conservative estimates put Asperger's prevalence at, I wasn't paying attention to that. 1 in 3 to 500? 1 in 100. Let's try that. Okay. Alright.
Although not necessarily demonstrated by all individuals with Asperger's syndrome, there are some common characteristics. Perhaps the most distinguishing is an individual's obsessive interest on a single object or topic to the exclusion of most others.
Hi, I'm Cookie, and when I grow up, I want to be a famous skateboarder. Yeah!
Some people with Asperger's have become experts on vacuum cleaners, U.S. presidents, or even more obscure items like manhole covers. Many individuals with Asperger's want to know everything about their topic of interest, and their conversations tend to focus on this one topic.
Also, make sure you protect your body. All you need is knee pads, elbow pads, wrist guards, and helmet. That's all you need to protect yourself, just like Tony Hawk.
They have been referred to as little professors, based on their knowledge about their areas of expertise. Another characteristic that makes those with Asperger's stand out is the way they speak. Though often grammatically correct, individuals with Asperger's can sound peculiar due to abnormalities of inflection, pitch, and volume.
I tend to have slightly slow reaction time because I'll try and think about what I heard before answering someone.
They may speak with a flat or monotone voice or not modulate their volume appropriately to match their surroundings, for example, when entering a library or movie theater. Also, individuals with Asperger's may take things in a very literal way, making figurative speech, sarcasm, and idioms extremely difficult to understand.
Sometimes you're just some particular like slang, metaphors, there's some things you just can't really understand. When you have Asperger's syndrome, you can sometimes take things really literally.
Imagine not getting the figure of speech when someone says, "Get off my back," or "That's for the birds." Many times, specific programs will be made for children to begin to understand all of these complex parts of everyday speech.
One thing I really can't stand at all, like socially speaking anyway, and with comedy I can sort of tell, but sometimes I may need some help. It's like with sarcasm, I just can't stand sarcasm at all. Especially if the person is being so serious about it, and I take them seriously, and it's like, oh dude, I was just actually just joking. It's like, but stop doing that.
Most difficulties individuals with Asperger's encounter center around social skills. Many individuals with Asperger's have difficulty showing enthusiasm in other people's interests and may lack perspective-taking skills.
You like video games?
Yep. You like
How much do you like them? Okay. What's your favorite car? Hot Wheels truck.
When they make fun of him, now he changes the things that he does, and he's aware of them making fun of him. So He's impacted socially because of his newfound awareness. You know, before it didn't matter what other people said. He didn't even greet other children.
People with Asperger's often remain in this egocentric state well into adulthood, as they may not have developed the ability to interpret the thoughts and emotions of others. This can lead to difficulties in relationships, as people may think the individual is being unsympathetic or not trying to see their point of view, when in fact they just lack the ability to pick up on social cues. As a result, individuals with Asperger's often behave inappropriately in social situations or act in ways that appear unkind or callous. Generally, emotion is conveyed through facial expression, tone of voice, and body language, but these may not be interpreted by an individual with Asperger's.
Hi.
Oh, no, not
I like your makeup.
Thanks.
So, what do you do when you like a boy and you know that he likes you back, but he keeps saying that he doesn't?
You go for it. Yeah, right? We can help you.
Really?
Yeah, so where's this boy?
Jake?
Tall, dark hair.
Jake Lasher.
This is gonna be fun.
If someone says, "That joke was so funny," while rolling their eyes, we may easily interpret that as sarcasm and comprehend that they really mean the joke wasn't funny at all. But if you take out the eye roll and tone of voice, this would be interpreted very differently. That's what it's like for many with Asperger's. Attention span is another problem area with individuals with Asperger's. This may show up in very young children as they are only able to focus on one piece of information at a time. Sometimes individuals may become distracted and focus on trivial details when being taught. This puts them at risk for missing bigger concepts and ideas. For example, Joseph is unable to attend to his reading assignment because he is preoccupied with the fact that the board was not completely erased. The transition to adulthood can be made even more difficult if individuals have not developed necessary skills because of their inability to focus on the important aspects. They may also miss important development in early stages of social skills if they were distracted by less significant details. Individuals with Asperger's often have difficulty with changes in routine. In some, this may lead to problem behaviors when transitioning. Some children with Asperger's may exhibit tantrums during unexpected situations or transitions.
Oh, honey, they're closed. We can't go in. I'm sorry.
No, I want to go in.
Lex, come on. Hey, come on. We need to go. Come on. Come on.
Physically, children with Asperger's may deviate from their peers as well. They often have a history of delayed motor skills, such as delays in pedaling a bike or catching a ball. They are often awkward and poorly coordinated with a walk that can appear either stilted or bouncy. They may exhibit unusual postures as well. Many individuals with Asperger's have a heightened sensitivity to various things in their environment. This may have to do with sight, sound, taste, touch, or smell.
Most of the hardest sensory experiences for me, they fall under the touch category. I'm not very fond of being in real cold water. I've complained about shirts with buttons and also some pants that may not necessarily be comfortable for the waistline. My hearing is very sensitive and might sometimes be the first to hear some quiet noise. Very recently, my computer was having a lot of problems. It was making this clicking noise, and I was the first one to notice it.
Although many individuals with Asperger's are aware of their differences, they may be unsure about how to address them. This can lead to anxiety or depression.
What are some things that maybe you could talk about that you feel like you struggle with, or like things that you're not so good at?
Probably being out and open socially amongst other people, I suppose. Especially with my own age group or so.
With all of these characteristics, people with Asperger's are often identified as eccentric, quirky, or weird. Although often interested in making friends, they may not know how. The impairments in communication that they suffer from cause problems when they attempt to engage in conversations. Many find any topic difficult beyond their particular interests, and frankly, it may be hard to find another person interested in talking about currents in the Pacific Ocean or the bus or train schedule. With these challenges also come strengths. The upside is that people with Asperger's may have incredible memories, and their obsessive interests can lead to great achievements. Although impossible to substantiate, many notable thinkers are thought to have had Asperger's, including Albert Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, Mozart, Michelangelo, and many others. Even with relatively high IQs, many times individuals with Asperger's remain emotionally dependent on parents or other caretakers. Asperger children generally have an IQ in the normal to above average range, in contrast to children with autism, who can have low IQs.
Which of the following is not a characteristic of Asperger syndrome? Peculiar speech, anxiety and depression, strong memorization skills, or below average intelligence? Right, generally they have average to above average intelligence.
In 1944, an Austrian pediatrician named Hans Asperger observed 4 children in his practice who had difficulty integrating socially. Although their intelligence appeared normal, the children lacked nonverbal communication skills, failed to demonstrate empathy with their peers, and were physically clumsy. Their way of speaking were either disjointed or overly formal, and their all-absorbing interest in a single topic dominated their conversations. Dr. Asperger called the condition autistic psychopathy and described it as a personality disorder primarily marked by social isolation. Asperger's observations, published in German, were not widely known until 1981, when an English doctor named Lorna Wing published a series of case studies of children showing similar symptoms, which she called Asperger syndrome. Wing's writings were widely published and popularized. Asperger's became a distinct disorder and diagnosis in 1992, when it was included in the 10th published edition of the World Health Organization's Diagnostic Manual, International Classification of Diseases, or ICD-10. And in 1994, it was added to the DSM. Then, in 2013, with the release of the DSM-5, Asperger's was eliminated as a separate diagnosis and placed under autism spectrum disorders with severity measures within the broader diagnosis. Also, a new diagnosis of social communication disorder was introduced that may absorb some of those currently with Asperger's diagnosis.
Asperger's was first discussed in Austria in 1944.
Intelligence by itself is not enough to succeed in school. Thus, children with Asperger syndrome may have particular difficulty within the school setting. In academic areas, children with Asperger's may have uneven and sometimes widely scattered profiles, often referred to as having splinter skills. They most often show strengths in tasks that require rote memory, in contrast to their weaknesses in areas where comprehension and more abstract reasoning are necessary. This capacity for detail can be astounding, and a striking contrast to their inability for street smarts. Weaknesses are also often noted in physical education. This can be due to the social nature of games, the child's poor coordination, and physical contact associated with sports. Modified physical education or adapted physical education services are often necessary and may need to be addressed in the child's education plan, along with other areas of need. Children with Asperger's may require accommodations in the form of teaching style, behavior support, social supports, and curriculum modifications to be successful in the traditional school setting. Adaptations to the curriculum must be carefully planned and highly individualized, and should also be included in the education plan to make sure they are followed by all persons who interact with the student. There is no one method or recipe which works with all students with Asperger syndrome, so adults must be flexible and creative. Social supports and social skills development need to be an ongoing part of educational planning. Children with Asperger syndrome are frequently targets for bullies, and some degree of protection is often needed, especially in middle and high schools. Preparation of normal peers to help them understand different students' abilities and disabilities often facilitates more acceptance. For some students, this bullying can be overwhelming and may lead them to not go to school. Here, David discusses why he would often ditch class.
And other times because I just got picked on at school, or just like didn't want to deal with some of my classmates. And sometimes it just was in a down mood, and I just didn't want to do much or go out anywhere.
Educational placement requires innovation and flexibility. The intellectual abilities of children with Asperger syndrome may allow them to function academically within a general education classroom. However, their behavior often requires more direct attention and programming. Sometimes paraprofessionals or classroom aides can be used, not for help with academics, but rather to target social skills and facilitate social interactions. Children who do well in elementary school often have new difficulty during middle and high school. This may be the result of a variety of factors, including more classes, more students, more social pressure, higher levels of reasoning required for academic success, more variables in the daily schedule, greater requirements for independence, the student is more aware of and unhappy about his social isolation, decreased sensitivity of peers, and hormones. For many individuals with Asperger's, the high school age curriculum may need to include instruction in basic living skills, community skills, and vocational skills. Students who plan to attend college may need specific teaching on how to adapt to college life.
True or false? Individuals with Asperger's generally excel in areas of physical education. False.
As with all disabilities, Asperger's syndrome does not just affect the individuals with the diagnosis. It has a profound impact on their families as well.
4 years ago, when Kubik got diagnosed, he was pretty much a nightmare. He didn't sleep at night, he did not eat, he was malnutrition.
Families of individuals with Asperger's may not even realize their child has a disability for some time, even though they may have been coping with the challenges with their child for years. It can also take years to receive an appropriate diagnosis, which can add to the stress and confusion. Some obvious but common challenges for families include strain on the marriage, deciding with whom and when to share the child's diagnosis, taking care of and balancing attention with the siblings of the individual with Asperger's. The effects of having a sibling with Asperger's can be very stressful for families for a number of reasons. The sibling may be upset by the fact that they can't have a, quote, normal relationship with their sibling. Many will need support in learning how to interact with their brother or sister with Asperger's.
So he went to attend a different school, and then we were having just a really hard time at that one particular school. So the school district had mentioned that Mary Jo has a larger school, more staff, let's try it. And so David had his interview there about 4 years ago, and they accepted him, and here we are.
Parents may get overwhelmed with all the new information that they have to learn, and the choices they have to make about how to best meet the needs of their child. Deciding when to intervene and help their child cope with social challenges and work on making friends can be difficult. Being sensitive to all these issues when working with a family is important. Oftentimes, we, as professionals, forget that after we work with the individual, we hand them back over to their parents and return to our lives. The families may also need to care for the individual with Asperger's throughout adulthood as well, and to varying degrees. This responsibility and the challenges that come with it can be overwhelming for many. Despite the hardships the love a family has for their children overcomes many of the challenges they face, and many families do accept their child's differences and learn to embrace them.
One challenge faced by families of individuals with Asperger's is deciding with whom and when to share the individual's diagnosis, deciding whether or not to send their child to school, dealing with the individual's inability to talk. So probably the first one. Good job.
A challenge facing the parents and educators of high school-aged children with Asperger syndrome is finding a vocational outlet for the child's unique interests and abilities. However, helping the student find and keep a suitable job requires considerable dedication on the part of the parents, teachers, and counselors.
Hoping in the future I get a job where I get to be creative. Maybe something like architecture or computer game design or something in the music business maybe. Maybe math teacher, some sort of teacher. I'll have to wait until I get older before I have a better idea of what I really want to do.
I'm probably going to go into video game design sometime, and it's a growing industry, although at the same time it seems to be decaying creatively, but I hope to help change that.
Temple Grandin is one such individual on the autism spectrum who took her interest in cattle and animal pens and forged a successful career designing animal pens and chutes and veterinary facilities for large animals. Social skills will also need to be addressed, as it is often the case that poor social skills, more than lack of educational or vocational competence, often leads to difficulty in the workplace.
True or false? More than often, poor social skills, lack of educational or vocational competence often leads to difficulty in the workplace. True. Oops.
There are many treatment options when it comes to helping an individual with Asperger syndrome. A collaborative approach of the person's entire team is in the best interest of the individual. It should include the family, doctors, and school personnel, if of school age, and any other service provider the individual interacts with. Under federal law, all children with disabilities, including Asperger's, are to be provided with free, appropriate public education. Schools must provide students with an education that is designed to meet the unique needs of that one student, and they must address both academic and functional needs. So although some individuals with Asperger's may not have many academic needs, their need for social skills training falls under functional needs and must be addressed within their education. It is important to meet as a team, identify goals, and establish an individualized educational program, IEP, or a 504 plan. IEPs are designed to fit the child's specific needs based on the evaluation of his or her level of disability and need to be tailored very specifically to the child's areas of need. Even if the child doesn't qualify for an IEP, they can still access accommodations and modifications through a 504 plan. There are many interventions that can benefit individuals with Asperger syndrome, such as naturalistic teaching strategies, self-management, story-based interventions, video modeling, and social skills training. NATS, self-management, story-based interventions, and video modeling have been identified as established treatments according to the National Standards Project, and studies continue to be conducted examining social skills training as it is currently identified as an emerging treatment. These interventions all utilize the methods of applied behavior analysis, or ABA. ABA extends well beyond the early learner programs and can help many individuals with Asperger's. Its primary goal is to help children catch up to the skill level of typically developing peers. Applied behavior analysis is not just a program to reduce problem behaviors and teach children to speak. It is comprehensive and also deals with teaching complex behaviors and social skills such as recognizing facial expressions and nonverbal behavior of others, development of cooperative social behavior, verbalizations of empathy, and conversing with peers on a variety of topics rather than a restricted range of interests. Another treatment that can be used is medication. This can be a controversial treatment, and although there is nothing to treat Asperger's itself, Medications can be given to treat accompanying symptoms, such as anxiety, depression, and hyperactivity. They include types of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, antipsychotics, and stimulants.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye. Programs targeting the deficits of individuals with Asperger should be included in the individual's IEP. Oh, either or. So it could be either or. Go away.
The adolescent and adult with Asperger syndrome often has limited self-help and community skills. In order to be an independent adult, skills need to be addressed for daily needs, getting around the community, and handling finances. Many of the adolescents require special training to develop these skills. This may be incorporated into the educational program or worked on at home, but development of these skills is critical to independence in adulthood. Many studies of adults with Asperger syndrome show that many require high levels of family and government support throughout life, in spite of their intellect and abilities. Intervening early and providing supports is not only in the best interest of the individual and their family, but also is in the best interest of the community, as the individual will have a better chance at independence. Having adults that are contributing members of their society should be a goal of everyone, to decrease government costs associated with caring for disabled adults, and to increase the quality of life for these unique individuals.
True or false? Studies of adults with Asperger syndrome show that many require high levels of family and government support throughout life. True. This was the final module in this chapter. Have you passed all the competency checks as indicated with check mark? I hope so. Great.